Yep. All right, troops, we're back. Mr. Consistency over here, inspiring the TSF hardcore back to getting regular pods out, and this is 2 in a row, Ryan, in like less than a week.
Well, it's 2 in a row, and it's I mean, when was it we done that? It must be less than a week. But I was going to say the main point is this is proper old school. This is
old school.
Me and you.
And I'm glad you brought that up, right? So this is just the two of it. This is where it all started, right? Years ago, right? But also, this is an important day in TSF history because 2 years ago today, where's your title gone? I mean,
I can't believe that's actually
iconic moment. If people
don't
know what we're talking about, right?
See, to be fair, right, that was 2 years ago, but surely we're not a kick in the arse off the actual anniversary of the show, because did we not record the first episode in January? Was it no Scottish Cup weekend?
So we're probably, it was. So we're about 3 years in?
So, it must be. I don't know the exact date, but we must be at a kind of,
Well, the first show went up on your channel, remember? And then we re-uploaded it when we made the actual channel once we realised that we wanted to do this. So yeah, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, the most iconic night in the history of YouTube, those who witnessed it when me and Ryan went head-to-head for the FM for the league, I was Rangers, he was Celtic. I had it in the bag. What was I, 5-1 up or something like that? And then ended up drawing 6 each for St Johnstone in the final day.
I think you were
3-1 I was 3-0 up.
3-0 up, and then they made
6-3 down.
Then 6-3 down, it ended up finishing 6-5. St Johnstone handed me the league title.
Not 6 each it finished, and I needed to win.
No, I'm sure it was 6-5. I'm sure it was 6-5. It ended up finishing. Yeah, he did that point. And I mean, safely said, I think it might be the greatest series to have ever been.
I'm actually gonna put the tweet out tonight with a video we did at the end of it, which kind of summarised it all. I mean, that was just the greatest of times. Anyway, we're 2 years on for that, which feels absolutely fucking mental in every respect. But we might as well kick off what happened at the weekend. As you can tell, I put a tweet up yesterday about my man Kevin Nisbet. You know how much I love Kevin Nisbet, and he scored a hat trick at the weekend for the High Bees, who got a 3-2 win over Motherwell. It was a really good game, actually. I don't know if you saw any of it. And it's kind of sparked a bit of a conversation. He's obviously been in decent scoring form since he come back. First of all, what we're calling him, what a result for Hibs. That was fucking desperately needed for Lee Johnson.
It's huge for Lee Johnson. Of course, we spoke last week about the problems that he might be facing as Hibs manager at the minute. He was brutally honest about the situation with some players. I think they've terminated the loans of a couple players. I don't know if it's just the one. A couple.
Well, that's the funny thing. The January on the Hibs calendar for 2023 has got the guy Boyang that's just been let go, and Ryan Porteous, who might also be on the way out. So that's
So obviously it was a big job ahead of him this week to try and get a result and try and calm the nerves of some Hibs fans. And you can always rely on your top player. He is back, and he's back with a bang. It just shows you how important he actually is. What's that? 5 games this season, 5 goals. That is the kind of player he is. Hattrick at the weekend. You honestly can't underestimate the influence that he has on that Hibs team. And obviously they're struggling with Martin Boyle being out, but with Nisbet coming in, it's quite a good substitution, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it comes back to something that I remember hearing Jerry Carragher saying this about back when he played Liverpool. They got a good player, and things were never as bad as they seem. If you can get someone in, especially someone that'll score goals, you will start to win games, and things won't be as bad as they seemed. So I put a tweet out basically after it saying, should Kevin Nisbet be in line for a recall to the Scotland squad? Now, I actually didn't think that was going to be controversial, because, if you look at the Scotland squad just now, you've got Lyndon Dykes and Che Adams, and then Jacob Brown, who's never kicked a ball for Scotland, right? Scotland needs strikers. Obviously, Lauren Shanklin's in form as well. Now, my kind of view on it is I think the two of them should be on with a shout for the next squad.
Well, I think that, to be honest, at this moment in time, there's nobody who really stands out as they are the striker kind of player for me. I think we're kind of in a weird limbo, in my humble opinion anyway. I think both of them with a shout, but Nisbet coming back and scoring goals. We've seen him score for Scotland. We've seen him play for Scotland. We know that he's been in the setup before. He's been good in the setup. And if he's back scoring goals for Hibs, then I really don't see why we shouldn't rush the conversation of getting him back in this Scotland team.
And obviously, I'm determined for it. Dunfermline have got. Well, we don't know what the sell-on clause is with Kevin Nisbet. It's between 25% and 35%. So, when there was 4 million getting talked about a few years ago, the Pars were in for over £1 million. So, I'm desperate for him to hit form, get sold and rake in some Fairland money. That would do good for
What are
me.
you gonna do? What are you gonna do if he ends up just seeing out his contract?
Well, that's the thing. Is it 18 months left?
Nothing?
That's what I'm worried about. Is it 18 months left?
Yeah,
And I'm not sure he'd re-sign a deal because I'm not really sure he would re-sign. I mean, he'd have to sell him in the summer really for us to get some money out of him. But we shall see. Motherwell are another team who are in dire straits just now. It was actually a good game, but they're really struggling. And Stevie Hamill is getting lots of stick off the Motherwell fans. They're in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Motherwell are one of those clubs that, have been lucky in recent years to have been spoiled with good patches of form. Ultimately, they are at the bottom end of the table when it comes to, spending and trying to recruit big players. But they're right now, they just don't offer anything. They're just really
3 points off the bottom just now.
I was about to say, I think that if you look at it realistically, this is a side who could very well be relegated. I honestly thought, and I don't want to take it, I know we missed a lot on this channel, we've not done a video in a long time. I thought that the appointment of Stevie Hamill was lazy, I thought it was poor at the time. And I know that, he's Motherwell through and through, and a lot of people at the club will be desperate for him to succeed, but I just don't see it happening. They've just been dire to watch, there's nothing there. They try. That's the thing. He is trying to play some decent football, but for Motherwell, it's a results business. There's no results coming at the minute, and they could go down, and that's scary for Motherwell fans.
It is, especially financially. I mean, the fact that they appointed Stevie Hamill suggested to me there might not have been the biggest kitty of money available. And I remember when Stephen Robinson left, and obviously Motherwell fans wanted rid. And it's something we've said about on this channel before. We said it about Derek McInnes at Aberdeen as well. Be careful what you wish for. I mean, Motherwell were spoilt with under Stephen Robinson with some of the stuff they had. And even before that, I mean, it was not long ago Motherwell finished in second and were in Champions League qualifiers. Like that has happened in the last decade. And now look at them. And you've got Motherwell, Kilmarnock, Dundee United, and Ross County down the bottom. I wouldn't want to write Ross County off because they always seem to find these results. Dundee United have found a little bit of an upturn. We'll come to them in a bit. But yeah, Motherwell fans not happy, and they're not playing particularly good stuff either. I mean, I know he's trying to, but
when
was
the last time?
If you're down at the bottom, you may as well just put two big guys up front and just.
Oh no, exactly. I think when you get to the point where you're 20 games into a league season, and in a club like Motherwell's position right now, I think that playing good football goes out the window. I don't think that necessarily should be the priority. The priority is to stay up. When was the last time Motherwell won a game? I can't even think off the top. Won a league game. I can't remember off the top of my head. Genuinely, I'd have to go and look. I can't remember them winning. I'm going. There we go. The last time they won a game, is that right? The 29th of October was the last time they won a league game. Is that right? I think that's right. The 29th of October, they beat Dundee United 1-0 at Tannadice. That was the last time they won a league game. That is terrifying. And granted, of course, we had a World Cup break in between. Maybe it's a little more deceiving than usual. But still that's to go on that run. Oh, it's rotten form. They need to sort that out because they're a club that on paper, right, if they go down, they should bounce back up. They're a club that size. They should be able to. But as you said, the finances don't look pretty. The team looks bland, and right now, if they don't get their act together, it's not going to be a very attractive place to go either.
And it's never that easy to get back up. I mean, look, Dundee United spent 4 years in the Championship. Hibs spent 3. Yep. Hearts were all right, but Rangers even spent 2 in the Championship. It's not easy to get out of, even if you do have the money. And I want to segue on to Dundee United because we'll come to the Rangers game as well. I'm sure there's a few things you want to talk about in terms of that game and potentially VAR again, which I'm fucking fed up hearing about. But we have to talk about it because it just keeps rearing its ugly head. Dundee United against Rangers yesterday as we're recording. And I watched the whole game. And Dundee United, the first half I thought were very good actually. And they were aggressive, they pressed, they got at Rangers, they made it difficult, they had chances, and they looked like a well-oiled machine. And up until that first goal, there was very little in the game.
Well, I turned it off with about 10 minutes to go, but you're right. First half, I actually thought that you could argue that Dundee United, well, I don't want to say better side, because Rangers were the ones that created the better chances, and they probably had more of the ball. But in terms of what Dundee United's limited ability is at the moment against sides like Rangers, you could argue that they were the better team. They were frustrating Rangers, they were making it difficult, and they certainly tried to give it a good go. And it was that one that way at half time. I was like, well, if they can keep this up for sort of 20-25 minutes this second half, and there's certainly a chance for a win on their hands. But as we all said in the second half, it wasn't as easy. Rangers did get a grip of themselves. They managed to find themselves in the game, and maybe it was just a little bit too much in the end for Dundee United, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, up until the first goal, they competed well. I did think they would struggle to maintain that intensity for the whole game. And once the first goal went in, it absolutely killed them, and you could just see the stuff was knocked out of them. And I have to say, what a goal from Fashion Sakala! I mean, he's a player who I'm not.
You sounded awful like Ali McCoy there. Oh, I have to say.
Oh, have you seen that Grado sketch?
I have to say.
Scott. Fantastic. But it was a great goal, to be fair to him. And I've criticised him a few times, but he's been playing quite well recently for a dead guy.
He must be.
Maybe when he was supposed to be dead.
That's right.
He's come back with a bang.
He must be Rangers' best player at the minute. He's got to be, and I think a lot of Rangers fans.
Rangers fans are going to come for you for that one, I think.
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of Rangers fans would maybe agree with that. To be quite honest,
maybe.
I don't know if maybe the majority of them would, but every time that I watch them, in recent times since Beals came in, it's picked up a bit, of course, as we all know. But towards the end of Gio's tenure, there was never standouts for me. But maybe the one guy that I thought had a wee bit more energy about him and offered something was Sakala. I don't know.
Definitely. He's certainly shown loads of energy.
The finish was brilliant yesterday. It's a top-class finish. And that's the kind of thing that Rangers have probably needed. They need that ability in the final third. Maybe they've missed it a little bit with Čolak being injured for quite a while. If you can score goals like that, then you're certainly going to secure yourself more points rather than dropping them at home to Livingston or going away from home and dropping them here and there. You need big moments like that, and Sakala popped up with one.
We've always, no one's ever doubted that he's got plenty of pace, he's got energy, he's got, he can hassle defenders. The quality has been the thing that's kind of been questioned, and actually, the second half summed him up. He scores that wonderful goal, and then the second goal comes from him missing a sitter, and then Malik Tillman fires it in. But those 2 goals in 3 minutes killed Dundee United off, and from then on, Rangers could have made it 3 or 4 or 5 if they really wanted to. But that could have been a banana peel for them, and they can't afford any more slip-ups.
No, they can't. I mean, look, listen, if they dropped points yesterday, you could argue that the title was done, was over. It could be, I think once it hits that double digits point, you're looking at a very long road for Rangers fans. It already is a long road, but mentally, I think there's a big story to unfold if they do manage to fall, double digits behind, and they've avoided that for now.
Yeah, that was a big win for Rangers, to be fair. But speaking of goals that came at important times, the goal at Parkhead in the first half came at a vitally important time for Celtic.
I thought it was never going to come. I'm very surprised that we actually managed to fit. You're immature, aren't you? You're immature.
No, I wasn't. Mate, I was laughing because Celtic always score. No, you're dirty mind. That's embarrassing.
That's embarrassing. You were the one who started laughing. Mum
and Dad watch this.
Anyway, I was going to say I never thought that it was going to actually happen for us. It came at a vital time. Kelly, fair play to them, made it really difficult in the first half for us. They were set up pretty well, and we struggled to kind of find the quality for the first half. I mean, I thought we were poor in everything we were doing, but the guy that scored the goal, he was the standout for me in the game. I know a lot of people are raving about Hattari's performance. He got man of the match, and probably rightfully so. But Maeda was the kind of the light in a dark first half for us, and he gets the goal to set us up on our way.
I thought it was Jota that scored the goal.
No, the first goal was... sorry, he made the assist. I know, I'm bad, poor. Sorry me, sorry. The assist from Maeda for the goal for Jota.
Were you even at the game?
Yeah, I know. I was at the game.
You just sit in the house and watch on Celtic TV, don't you?
It's because I'm just thinking so much about Maeda there that I was thinking, I've talked myself into him scoring the goal. But he does all the work. He gets the ball across for Jota, puts it in the back of the net. But throughout the first half, the only light that I seen from it was from Maeda. He was brilliant. He's becoming a really key part to this side. He's become undroppable, really, which is bizarre because this time last month, 2 months ago, a lot of Celtic fans didn't want to see him start games. Now I think he's become one of the key players in what we're doing at the minute, and that was seen with how important he was on Saturday.
Almost got a goal of the season contender second half as well. I caught the clip of that last night when he picks it up on the edge of his own box and drives into the Kelly box. Probably should have passed it, but we know he's got ability. He's just struggling in front of goal, but now he's finding the goal. And it's interesting that now there's a bit of transfer interest in him as well. Southampton apparently have watched him. They're rumoured to be making a bid soon. We'll see what happens there. In terms of transfers, Celtic are probably the one club in terms of transfers just now that I reckon something's going to happen imminently. I've obviously done a lot of business already, but they've got I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Korean striker's name because I just don't know how to do it. So I'm going to let you take that away.
Cho Gu-sung.
And now, am I right in saying there's now rumours that Rangers are also taking an interest in him?
Well, I heard something earlier about Rangers, and I've not read. I just seen somebody put in a group chat earlier saying Rangers going for that striker. But
I'm going to admit that my source for that was Spunkphone on Twitter, so that could be utter strike.
I think it probably is then. Probably is. I need to go and do my reading. I've not had time before this, but I mean, if we're going to come into transfer talks and go around the league, we'll start with Celtic, I suppose, but. Bizarre that we're seeing the likes of Juranovic go to Monza.
What's this
and bizarre as Giacomakis might be going to Japan as well. Bizarre moves. I never thought that would be the transfers that we'd see.
The Juranovic one's the strange one. I mean, because
7 million.
That's I'm not sure about that. Like,
it must be a release clause. It's got to be a release clause.
I must be perfectly honest, right? I am not the biggest fan in the world of Juranovic. I think that he's someone Celtic can easily let go, and I think they already have replaced. But I did think they would get at least double that.
Well, I think that we were maybe ambitious and set our sights for, a lot of people, and including myself, are saying we could see the likes of 20 million. That was maybe ambitious, but I think you're right in saying at least 14, 15 million pounds is what I expect. You heard the names of the clubs: Chelsea, Barcelona, Man United, Atletico Madrid. All these clubs were apparently interested, but I guess that's the difference now, isn't it, in interest and in actually making a bid. Someone like Monza, if they're the only club to make a bid, they aren't going to bid in 15 million pounds.
No.
So the only way that you're going to get that is if one of these bigger clubs come in, and that doesn't seem to be happening.
I'll take you back to Croatia, Brazil in the World Cup. He was absolutely outstanding in that game.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, this World Cup tax, it always happens to transfers, is going to add 10 million onto it. I was generally thinking they'd probably get about 20 million from him. And then there was the Chelsea interest, and that's not come to fruition. So it's a strange one. Giacomakis is another strange one. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's fantastic.
I'll miss him.
Celtic seems to be lining up his replacement already, so that would suggest that he's going to go. Same way that Alistair Johnston's obviously come in to replace Juranovic. So in terms of the planning at Celtic, they've done it the right way. It's just a bit of a surprise maybe that it's... I kind of felt like if they were going to go, it would have been in the first week of the month.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. The kind of transfers, when you look at, Giacomakis going to Japan, potentially, and even Juranovic going to Monza, I think they're the kind of transfers that the players will be having a lot of negotiations with these clubs. They don't strike me as clubs who are going to be doubling the wages of these players. I think there'll be a lot of weight in their minds as to whether or not this is the right thing to do. I'm not saying they're going to stay, and I'm not saying that that's, going to their mind's suddenly going to change. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as one of these bigger clubs like a Barcelona or Chelsea going, okay, there's the money, come on. I think they will sit and they'll weigh their options and they'll make sure they're doing the right thing. So maybe, I think it'll be towards the end of the window at this rate, to be honest.
This is the thing, though. I'm praising Celtic for getting a replacements identified and brought in. What if these guys now don't leave? Where does that leave them in terms of their playing time? Because, I mean, if I'm Juranovic, he obviously wants to leave. Giacomakis is the same. But if they're now making the intention clear they want to leave and the clubs aren't there that they thought they were going to get, I mean, is Monza really... I mean, the weather might be all right, but is it really that much of an attractive proposition?
Listen,
in terms of
Silvio Berlusconi owns the club. He'll be having the hookers up left, right, and centre. I'm sure that's the encouragement. No, I know what you mean. If they do end up staying, I don't think it's a disaster. They're still quality players, but it certainly makes you ponder the question of, what do we do? Because we don't want to bring in the likes of Johnson or Cho and then they guys don't get the minutes that they need to get bedded into this team. So it'll be a weird one. I'm pretty sure that they'll leave the club. I just think that we'll have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. The one thing about Giacomakis is if he doesn't leave, Celtic don't need to sign a replacement. Obviously, the replacement of Juranovic is already in, and I think Johnston, I was really impressed with him in the Old Firm. I don't know, did he play on Saturday? I don't know how he got on.
He did. He played on Saturday. He played the night.
I was impressed in the Old Firm when he played. So he's going to come and he's going to want to play every week. But Ralston, who is also going to want games when he's, so it's going to be a struggle for Juranovic. But anyway, we'll kind of filter onto a bit of Rangers transfer talk. Michael Beale's made lots of positive noises in terms of what Rangers fans will want to hear. Players that come in, he thinks the fans are going to be excited with. They're going to be players that are going to improve the team for the next few years. Talk of Tom Davies from Everton. Todd Cantwell was another one that was mentioned. Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, how they need to get players in desperately. But he's obviously wanting a different approach to that of Gio last January when he brought in, the likes of Aaron Ramsey. I don't think we're going to see signings like that from Rangers this window.
Well, yeah, they're going to do better than what they did last year. That's a certainty. Because Aaron Ramsey was, I'll use a Lenny phrase here, an unmitigated disaster. The risk is obviously with a player like Todd Cantwell has he performed over the last couple of years. There's definitely a player there. There's definitely talent there. But will they be able to get it back out of him is the question. Has that been too much of a risk with some of Rangers' signings? You know, you look at someone like Ben Davies. Yeah, he's coming into a game now. He's been playing a bit, but he never played football for a year. They've had to wait. They've had to be patient. Can Rangers afford to wait and be patient with another player?
And Tom Davies as well has been out injured all season.
Yeah, they need players in the team now. And I don't know what it seems to be with Rangers. And these signings could work out, so I'm not saying they're not going to. But what I think with Rangers is, I feel like their scouting has been very narrow when it comes to signing these first-team players. They've done well going afar for maybe some other players that have been on the bench or maybe had limited minutes, but the players coming right into the team, Ramsey, you're talking Davies, you're looking at a couple of these other guys, I just feel like they're going for players who could have been a player and then they weren't a player and they're taking a big risk. I don't know if there's money to worry about, or like if the transfer restrictions are maybe a little bit tighter for Michael Beale. But I don't know. They don't strike me as signings that are going to work straight away, and that's what I'd be worried about if I was a Rangers fan.
Yeah, it'll be certainly be interesting to see what they do, but he does seem to be saying that there's going to be players for the long term rather than the short term, which is vital for Rangers. I mean, it's crazy the way Celtic and Rangers have kind of gone full circle in the last few years compared to like where Celtic's planning was.
Listen, if you go into my channel, sorry, not to cut you off.
Go back to this podcast from years
ago. I was going to say, if you go back at my channel a few years ago, I used to rant and rave about Tom Davies. I really liked him when he first broke into the Everton team. Went down a very steep decline. It was never as good as when I first thought he broke in. But there's definitely potential in a player like him. It's the risk of trying to get that potential. Will it pay off? It's a big risk.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, of course. Every transfer is a risk, I suppose, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's a vital window, I think. But part of me thinks, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, if the gap goes to 10 points anytime soon, it's very much going to be planning for next year for Rangers. Let's move on. We'll quickly go through the rest of the games that we can, because we've got a wee segment at the end of the show that I want to come to, that we put a bit of time into this week. We mentioned Lawrence Shankland earlier. We didn't talk about the Hearts game, but it was an interesting one. I don't know if did you see the red card for St Mirren in the Hearts game?
No, I did not, but I heard about it. I meant to actually that's the only game from the weekend that I actually didn't clock anything of. Although I did want to talk about St Mirren. But no, I haven't seen it. You must enlighten me. Oh, do you want me to say what I was going to say about St Mirren?
You fire on. I like it when you've got these, you surprise me with these stories you come out with.
Surprise, right? Well, St Mirren. I like St Mirren. I think that
who was the player you used to be obsessed with? Who was the Conor McCarthy.
Conor McCarthy.
I don't think you ever saw him play, but you're obsessed with him.
I like St Mirren, right? And I think that Stephen Robinson is doing a good job at the minute. You know, you're looking at a side that could potentially try and push on for that Conference League spot if they really, really, really give it a good go. You look at the fact they've not scored many goals and they've still managed to do so well in the league this season. But that's what's going to hold them back, isn't it? That's what I wanted to say about St Mirren. They need a striker. They need somebody in this January window. They need a goal scorer. They had a goal scorer away, I think, from being probably one of the best sides outside the top three in this league.
But they conceded the third least amount of goals.
Yeah, exactly. They just need a goal scorer. They do a lot of good things. You watch them, and it's just they've got physical strikers, but they aren't strikers. They're going to get you 2-3 goals a season. Probably.
St Mirren have had this for years. It feels like you've had like Obika, you had like Brophy, Lee Irwin, these kind of guys. They're never going to score you 30 goals. Well, not that St Mirren player is, but 20 plus. It's not going to happen. But you're right. If they could find someone like that, it would be very, very interesting. Anyway,
because you look at the game against Hearts, right? Sorry, just a final point. You look at the game against Hearts at the weekend, right? If they have someone in that team to maybe bury a couple of chances, you're talking about beating Hearts, which would have, you look at the league table right now, it would have took them, 2 points behind the Jambos. So that is, it's crazy what, a striker could do.
Speaking of players that have come in, and a signing that I think when he signed for Hearts, people maybe raised eyebrows, Robert Snodgrass. I've always been a big fan of Snoddy, always liked him for Scotland. And he's been fantastic for Hearts, to the point that the first half of the weekend, all I could see on Twitter was Hearts fans going, they've stopped Snodgrass, they've stopped us. And he's just got his new deal as well. And he seems to be a real key player in the Hearts team. Gets his goal in the second half. But it's crazy. I mean, we mentioned it on the show, Snodgrass and who was Snodgrass and what was it we mentioned? It was like compared to Hibs and Hearts signing McGeady, Snodgrass, and then who was the other one we said? Shankland and McCurdy or something like that. You've got the
that,
difference in quality. And yeah, he got the goal. But the red card, it's a strange one. I can't remember who the Hearts players were, but Marcus Fraser jumps over like one and lands studs down on the leg of another. It was a pretty horrible challenge. But a lot of St Mirren fans weren't actually convinced it was a red card. That was serious.
Do you think it was a red card?
Definite red card. It's a mental challenge. It was a little bit like the Robertson one on Traore. Did you see that one in the FA Cup?
Yeah, I did see that.
It's like that, but he had to jump over a player in between, to land. It was very, 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 very weird. But yeah, it was a red card was given, and I think it was the right decision. We didn't talk about VAR, but we're gonna have to do it before I forget, because Connor Goldson, Rangers' best shot stopper at the moment, by the looks of things. Now, when we talked about this last week, I said that I didn't really want to talk about the decision. It was more about the use of VAR, and the problem is, again, it's just inconsistency. Now, one thing that really annoys me about this is the clip that flies around on Twitter after the game is in slow motion from behind the goal.
Yeah.
If you watch it in real time, it misses the Dundee United player. I personally don't think that should be a penalty kick, right?
Let me clarify. Okay.
But given the way the game is being refereed now, and some of the things that we have seen given, it should be a penalty kick. But this is what really annoys me. It's the ruling that's the problem, and the inconsistency of the application of it. Like, if you watch it in real time, it literally misses the guy in front of him and hits his hand. I don't think
they can't move it. They can't.
Yeah,
move it.
But how many have we seen that have been worse than that have been given?
Well, it's happened to Celtic, I think, twice now. I think with
Barnaby
and
one,
Matt O'Reilly.
It's the Barnaby one that really gets me, because it's behind his head. It was just nonsense.
Well, I think that when you watch it in real time, on a normal, if referees' decisions were as black and white as they should be, I actually don't think it's a penalty. I had a little bit of a laugh on Twitter with it because it's another Goldson handball, but I actually don't think it is a penalty. But when you compare it to this, as you said, decisions that have happened and the consistency, if that's to stay there, then it should be. But that's the problem now. And that's why we had this big discussion last week. That's why I'm glad Celtic want to speak to the SFA about VAR, because we need to sort it out. We need to clarify what the consistency is and what the problems are and how to fix it, because we don't know what a penalty is nowadays. Because I think that shouldn't be a penalty. Yeah, but you're suddenly having all these conversations about why it should be because of the decisions we've seen in the past. So it's just annoying. Really.
It makes no sense. But again, it comes back to the fact that VAR is still down to one or two officials' interpretation of the law. And if you've got rotten officials, you can have rotten VAR. And that seems to be the way it's going to go. I can't see it improving anytime soon. And I just think we're going to have this. And I said to you before we recorded, I just couldn't be asked talking about it, because it's going to become one of these things that every single week you're going to have to bring it up because something else will happen. But anyway, we'll move on. Graham Shinney back at Aberdeen. What a signing that is. And it worked. They got their first win in ages at the weekend.
Yeah, they got a 2-0 win, didn't they? It's a good result for Goodwin, considering that recently he's been under a little bit of pressure. You could say Goodwin, he needs to start picking up these results. And as you touched on, Shinney, great signing. I was always a big fan of Graham Shinney when he was at Aberdeen in his first tenure there. I thought it was a big loss at the time when he went away, and I think that sometimes we're very guilty in Scotland for resorting to players of the past. So you see players sign, Louis Moult going back to Motherwell is the most recent example I can think of. Martin Boyle going back to Hibs, I suppose, to an extent that's there, but a lot of the times when we do that, it doesn't work out, these Scottish clubs. But Graham Shinney, I think, is a player of real quality, and maybe the kind of experience they need in that team, because this is a very different. Look at the difference from when he last played for Aberdeen to now. Very different team, very different squad of players that he'll be in with, but he can certainly bring in the experience that he had from his first time there, which seen numerous cup finals, second place finishes. He's the kind of guy that I think they'll benefit having around.
Yeah, I think it's a massive signing for them. I mean, the last time he was here, Aberdeen have really good attacking players, and I've been saying this a lot. I mean, Duke and Miovski have been fantastic this season. They're scoring a barrel load of goals. These are guys that Aberdeen are going to sell for a few million quid. I've no doubt about it. But they've lacked a steal, and not mainly in the back line, and a leadership as well. I mean, Shinney will just come in and he'll transform that team. I've no doubt about it. And I don't think Aberdeen are as far away as, I know Goodwin's been under pressure, but they're still reasonably placed in the league. They'll do okay if they can just start, keeping the ball out of the net and keep scoring at the top end of the pitch. But yeah, that was a good important win for them. Much needed. He said Goodwin under pressure, more so from the fans than I think Dave Cormack. I don't think Dave Cormack had any real intention of getting rid of him. I think he was always going to get back this window. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
This is the thing now. Aberdeen, the real test is their next 3 games. You look at it, they've got Rangers in the semi-final. They would really love to knock them out the cup if they could. They've got Hearts in the league after that, and then they've got Hibs in the league after that as well. So it's a really tough run of games for Aberdeen, and Jim Goodwin needs a couple of big results, I would say, and he's not incapable of that.
No, absolutely not. Final game in the Premiership at the weekend was in Dingwall. Big win for Livy. Bruce Anderson at the double. Seems to score in spurts, Bruce Anderson. He'll go and get a couple, then he'll be off for a wee while. But, another good result for Livy, who, again, are sitting very, very nicely in the table. Very much on for a top 6 finish. Sitting in 5th just now. And Davy Martindale, to be fair, we always talk about him as a comedic figure. But the actual job he's done has been unbelievable. Coach. Like, we are now sitting here looking at Livy in the top 6, and it's not something we're going, wow, Livy in the top 6. It's like, wow, that's
it's normal.
What they do.
Let me pose you a question. How big a loss to Livingston do you think Marvin Bartley will be?
Well, it's hard. It's always hard to tell, isn't it, with backroom staff? I mean, there's always been this. Yeah, it is really hard to tell. I remember when, who was it? Someone left Celtic. Was it Damien Duff left Celtic?
Yeah, Damien Duff.
And there was this thing. Yeah, you could. But, no matter what happens now, it's going to be, if they do lose 2 games in a row, it's going to be because of Marvin Bartley. But it's hard to know, really, if that's true. Really interesting for him. It's a tough job he's taking at Queen of the South. We'll come on to that a wee bit later. But, yeah, a good win for Livy. Ross County still at the bottom, but I wouldn't write them out yet. I still think they've got the ability. The only thing is, United and Motherwell ahead of them have both got a game in hand.
I was going to raise the point that I know there is teams with games in hand. You look at St Mirren, who've actually only played 19 games as well. But you look at the league table, and it's close, man. Like, I think St Johnstone have every right to include themselves in a top half conversation at the minute. They're only a few points off it. And then down the bottom, it's tight as well between Kilmarnock and Ross County. So it's a very interesting league table we've got at the moment, and a lot of things can change between now and the split.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Championship briefly. I think the standout result of the weekend in Scotland had to be up at Cove. Paul Hartley's first game back as Cove Rangers manager, and it was Cove Rangers 0, Queen's Park 6. Just unbelievable scenes. And Paul Hartley has got a big job in his hands to re-galvanise that team who look, in a really, really bad way. The lucky Hamilton are so fucking bad, to be perfectly honest. But wow, what was that on Queen's Park? I mean, Owen Coyle, what a job he's doing there, by the way. I mean, that is just unbelievable.
How do you even start to? I know we're talking about Queen's Park more there, but how do you even start to go about that? Like, how do you fix a squad?
Well, he's the guy that got them up.
Yeah.
He's just got Declan Glass back on loan from Dundee United, who was a big part of that last year. But I mean, Arbroath have found a little bit of form in 9th. They've got some good players in January. I can't see them going down. Hamilton, I think, are doomed. But for Paul Hartley, he's got a big job in his hands. And there's a lot of people gunning against him from his former clubs. He never seems to end well at any of these places when he's a manager, Paul Hartley.
But as you were saying, Owen Coyle, it's going to be crazy, the fact that we might see Queen's Park
Lesser Hampden in the Premiership.
In the Premiership, I think that is quite mad.
What do you think Celtic and Rangers allocation would be at Lesser Hampden next year?
Well, what is the actual capacity of the stadium?
It's not finished yet, I don't think.
I know it's not finished. So, but what is the final capacity?
I mean, I don't imagine I can't see it being any more than 1,500. I don't really.
Lesser
it's a tiny space.
Hampden.
It is a really small space.
That's how it was going to be bizarre watching that on the telly.
Because I've always thought, I've been excited at the thought of us being in the same league as Queen's Park in the next few years, so I can go there to watch a game. But now I'm thinking they're gonna be fucking 2 leagues above us if we're not careful.
Okay, so I'm looking at the Lesser Hampden rebuild gallery, right?
Right. Okay.
And I think that I'm trying to look for numbers very quickly. I'm scanning through the article, but holy moly, that is. I think you're talking about 1,000 seats. I generally think it is around 1,000 seats. So. I mean, you're going to be lucky if Celtic and Rangers get 100 tickets at this rate for that kind of game.
And the thing is, about Queen's Park, right? The more they keep doing well, they're going to start to gain a wee following. Especially, if you have people who want something to do on a Saturday. I'll go and watch Queen's Park. They're flying high. I mean, let's get a bit of context. They played... actually, no, they don't. I was going to say they had... Ayr and Dundee had games in hand, but they don't. Jesus Christ, they're 4 points clear at the top of the Championship. Which is just remarkable considering they only came up last year. And we knew when, I remember when they imported Leanne Dempster and she was rumoured to go to Rangers and she went to Queen's Park. We knew this was a club that had ambitions, but dearie me, talk about being ahead of schedule. If they manage to go up this year, that will be one of the biggest stories. For one of Scotland's most historic football clubs, let's not forget, What a story that would be. Anyway, let's move on. Quickly go through the rest of the championship. Another defeat for Hamilton, who look absolutely doomed. Here's a good story about Hamilton. You'll have missed this, but so the Hamilton social media and that is a disaster, right? And there's a Facebook account that's just called Hamilton Academical Board, and it's got like a board member who replies to fans' comments. But he obviously didn't sign out of the board account to go into his other account when he started slagging off a fan on Facebook, telling him to shut the fuck up and all this. And I deleted the comments straight away, but you got caught doing it. So you got Hamilton's own board fighting with their fans on Twitter. They look doomed to relegation, and as I've said before, maybe serious financial trouble.
2 wins in 20. That's.
Did you see the thing? I think it was. I can't remember. Was it 2015? And it was like after 9 games in the top flight, Hamilton were first.
Yeah,
it's like, how did that even? I don't even remember that. Like,
it's crazy. It's crazy. They're just a weird club because they have a good community aspect around them. They obviously have a very good youth system.
They're losing that, which is the problem.
And yeah, exactly. They're throwing everything away, and it's a club, as you said, they'll be lucky to escape financial turmoil at this rate. So it's a club going to the wall very, very quickly in every aspect of football.
Yeah. Inverness got a good win up at Arbroath. Thistle beat Morton 2-1 at home. Last thing I want to mention in the championship, you surely saw this. Friday Night Football, Wraith Rovers and Dundee. If anyone hasn't seen it, I mean, what I actually, someone said to me after Johnny Sunderland was pissed. Like,
hey, look, I was about to say, do you know how he sounds steaming? Do you know how he sounds like? Because if I was to try and do an impression, he's like that. Well, usually when we book James McFadden, there's no goals in the first half. And I was like, is he scooshed? Like, I mean, I don't know if he's been spiked or something, but he was absolutely steaming by the looks of things.
I mentioned this before. He's married to the daughter of a teacher who was in my school. And he's been up in our way a few times. But he looked absolutely blazing, and Faddy just put him down. You know, but Faddy's so dry at the best of times. It's 1-0. Yeah, it was just fantastic. It literally looked like an Only an Exclusive sketch. That's the only way I can describe it. It was just horrendous. Right, best league in Scotland, League One. Good win for Dunfermline at the weekend. Massive win.
Yeah,
the top of the table clash at Edinburgh. We should have won 5-0 from all. Honestly, we have the best defensive record in the country, but we're not really good at scoring goals.
Are you sad you never got to visit Meadowbank yourself?
I mean, to be fair, the weekend they improved it. Behind the goal, they brought fans closer, but it's still an absolute dive. But that was a good one for us. Keeps the gap. Well, it sends the gap over Edinburgh to 4 points. We've got 2 games in hand on them, and we're still 7 ahead of Falkirk, who beat Montrose just about. Kelty won also, as did Airdrie, and Alloa got a good win over Queen of the South, which was just before the news broke that Marvin Bartley was the new Queen of the South manager, which is, you know, a really interesting appointment. Marvin Bartley's kind of like a universally popular figure in Scottish football, I feel like. Yeah. I don't really know anyone that's kind of had... He just seems like a really nice guy.
Well, he's obviously done his bit speaking up for a lot of the key issues in Scottish football, and I think that's obviously brought a lot of respect on his name, and he seems to be a good candidate. He
pulled Tam Cowan's pants down a few weeks ago. I don't know if you saw that carry on.
But, you know, he obviously seems to be a respected guy in amongst the squads as well. Livingston, they seem to rant and rave about him, or did till he left, I suppose.
The Hibbies still love him as well.
And the Highbies still love him as well. So, you know what I'm saying? He seems like a good guy to have around, and hopefully it's a hard job. It's a tough job. Queen of the South, of course, have had a sticky couple of years, and, you know, maybe League One has probably not went to plan either. So he's got a tough job there.
One game I'll touch on League Two just before we come on to the rest. But Bonnyrigg played Albion Rovers. They're 2 at the bottom of the league. Bonnyrigg have obviously just come up, and they got humped 4-0 off Albion Rovers, then leapfrogged them to go into 9th. It's weird because like Cove, Kelty have been the 2 that have come up and have just flown through the next stage. Bonnyrigg are down the bottom, and you might go straight back down, which will be interesting to see if, like, you know, obviously we've got the pyramid in place now of the teams that come up. Are we now going to see teams that are less likely to go through the divisions? I mean, I don't know who'll win the low. You know, Trident look pretty good. EK are up the top. I can't see either of them really pushing on like Cove and Kelty have done. So that might be the end of that wee facade. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah.
Do you not think the mighty EK can do it?
No, I don't even know. I think Trinent are up the top of the league. I have been following the low league a little bit this year.
I was actually at the B team derby a couple of weeks ago.
Do you want to talk to us about that then? Why not? Let's have it.
It was a good laugh. It's good to have a glimpse into some of these players who have maybe a future between Celtic and Rangers. But it was a good. Did the boy Davidson play for Celtic?
Winger.
Bruno Davison.
When he was at Eastern Park when he played for the B team, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he played. Really a couple of good standout players for Celtic, I'd say. Joey Dawson, he came on and ended up scoring a couple right at the end of the game. Obviously Rocco Vata, who's been spoke about quite a bit, he's actually played some first team minutes now. But it was funny because obviously Rangers took the lead, made it 1-1. They took the lead again, they scored and made it 2-1. And they all come celebrating right up. They try to wind the Celtic fans up, try to wind all the Waynes and that up, and they're proper getting in it. You'd think it was the new derby, like the
If you were 19-year-old playing a B team derby,
of course I would, right? Of course I would, right? But they're right in the faces. And the same boy who's getting at this next ends up scoring the own goal to put us up 3-2.
Charlie McCann, formerly of Republic of Ireland?
Yes, formerly Republic of Ireland. So we ended up winning the game. We ended up winning the game 5-2. It was fun. It was good. What I will say is, what a difficult, and I don't want this is a rabbit hole, and we'd be here all day talking about it. It's probably a podcast of its own. But we look across both teams, and I think that a lot of these players are going to struggle to ever really make it in the first teams at Celtic and Rangers. I really do. It's weird right now, the state of the kind of getting into our teams.
Who was the last one? Who was the last one that regularly played in like a youth team?
Well, the last success we've had was Ben Doak. Of course, he's ended up.
Yeah, but I mean in terms of being a regular in the Celtic first team.
Tierney and McGregor.
Ralston maybe.
Ralston, I suppose.
But went a long way round.
Yeah.
But even McGregor had to go on loan, down south.
To Notts County.
Really got a kick. Yep. I think Tierney's the only one that's probably recently gone straight from youth team to first team. And for Rangers, I'm struggling to. I know I've got lots of high hopes with Lowry, but
Nathan Patterson.
Patterson will be the one, and he's obviously done well. But you're right; it is quite rare that we see these players.
Because there was some good players. There was some good players, but there's some that were hopeless. There was some that they looked as though they had no ability whatsoever for both sides. I was like, okay.
Well, we're talking about lower league there, but I mean, Cy Ferry's for example, he was a fantastic player at the Celtic youth setup. They all raved about him. He was playing 2 years above himself, got like a 4-year deal in that, and then never made it. At the senior level, injuries or whatever can be part of it. Just look at the loan league. The Spartans are top, Trinent are third, Stirling Uni are fifth, East Kilbride sixth, and Ovingall seventh. Celtic and Rangers are in there, but obviously can't get promoted, so they're kind of irrelevant. I'm glad you mentioned Ben Doak because it just reminded me of something that we had to cover. Liverpool fans are raving about him, by the way. He's only come off the bench a couple of times and they're all absolutely raving about him. But the one thing I had to cover about a Scottish boy down south, we tweeted about it yesterday, Dean Campbell, with it winning the penalty and then scoring the winner for Stevenage at Villa Park to produce one of the biggest FA Cup shocks in recent years. Wow. I actually, when I heard it was Dean Campbell, I wonder if that was the boy who was at Aberdeen. Forgot he was still actually on loan from Aberdeen. But what a moment. I mean, that's cup football at its best.
That is. There was a couple of good games in the cup over the weekend down south, but that was a standout moment. That was really good. I always love the giant killings and cups, even up here as well. I mean, not when it's Celtic, but
yesterday was the anniversary of the Celtic Clyde game. I think that was yesterday. Roy Keane's first ever game for Celtic. I actually watched the highlights of that game recently, and it was a pumping. Clyde had so many chances. It was weird. Anyway, sorry, I'll move on. Right, anything you want to cover? Anything that's come up recently that you think is worth mentioning?
Do you know what? I honestly came onto this podcast with a couple of things in my head that I was actually going to bring up, and they have slipped right out my mind. So we may as well just get on to the things you want to talk about, because I know that there is plenty.
Right, so I put a tweet out yesterday. I said this to the boys in the chat. I was like, right, we'll do a new feature where every week before the show we'll ask the audience a question. Instead of getting the audience to ask us questions like we used to do, we'll ask the audience a question. So I went with, what are everyone's biggest footballing pet peeves? The things that really, really grind your gears. Adam was supposed to be on the show. He'll be on the show on Thursday. I'll get his then. But I mean, I put the tweet out. I put it out on Instagram, and there was just hundreds of comments. But I'll let you kick off because I asked you to prepare a couple. So yes. I'll cut mine in a minute or two as well. I'll look through some comments.
Now, this is very, very this is broad. But one thing that has become a football pet peeve. Football Twitter. Football Twitter has got to be up there. It's got to be
a space that we operate frequently.
Yes, a space that you could maybe consider ourselves in, but there is a difference between those who are normal and then football Twitter. You know what I mean? Like the accounts, but they're Martial profile
United
pictures
Tray and all that.
That has got to be the thing that has ruined football for me the most. It makes me almost want to delete Twitter, but then obviously I enjoy Twitter. The good side of Twitter, I like it. I'm glad I'm there, but it is properly. I think that it has disrupted so many people in terms of viewing football the way it actually is. Twitter kind of now determines how people analyse football, how they consume football, and so many people are just brain dead to reality. You can't just enjoy it now. You've got to be in arguments left, right and centre. You've got to watch these wee guys bickering and putting up posts. It's just, I think it's killed a very big enjoyment of football for me. I know everybody listening to this podcast won't be on Twitter, so they might not have they might just say, well, go off Twitter then. But oh, jeez, it's got to be one of the main things for me now. Just
elaborate on what you just said there. I put a tweet up this afternoon about. I just put a question. I was like, "Is Gareth Bale the greatest British footballer ever?" Right? It was just a question. Yeah. But see the replies. It was all like, "No, fucking no way. What are you saying that for?" I was like, "But you didn't read the tweet. I was asking the question. I wasn't giving my opinion." And it's like you've got to have an opinion on everything. Like, see, you've got to have like an opinion. I'm like, well, I don't really know who the best British footballer is.
That's sweet, really, obviously.
Gareth Bale's definitely in the question, but I mean,
absolutely.
People just jump in so two-footed. Anyway, let's go through. Well, I'll kick off on mine, right? And the reason I thought about this segment is, and it's something that's done my fucking head in for years. And as I was watching the Dundee United Rangers game, pre-match in the tunnel, right? Why? And I don't know why. Why do goalkeepers always say hello to each other? Why do they do it? Why do goalkeepers from opposite teams always say hello to each other?
It's a goalkeepers union.
Why? I don't get it. I just do not get it, right? I mean, you wouldn't get Liam Smith and James Tavernier in the tunnel going up saying hello to each other because they both play right back. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It does my head in.
I've got a reason why they might. I mean, it's a very lonely job. You stand.
Piss off.
Both of them understand how lonely they may feel during the 90 minutes. So
just because they're so far away from each other during the game, they're like, well, we'll not get a chance to speak. It's always irritated me so much, especially in like big games. I don't know if it happened in the last Old Firm game, but there was an Old Firm game when it happened recently, and Joe Hart and I think it was John McLaughlin, maybe it was Amber, I can't remember, but they shoot, and I was like, what are you doing? I mean, you're not going to get fucking Morelos and Kyogo giving each other a cuddle because they both play up front. It just it pisses me off.
I was just giving one each just now because I've got.
No, you fire on. Keep going.
One that's pissed me off forever as an avid kit fan. When teams wear their home kit for away games. When they don't need to, like say.
So I get it. Wear the away kit.
Yeah, I think the whole point of an away kit should be to wear it away from home. See, nowadays we launch out 3, sometimes 4 kits a season. Some teams, and some of the kits you see getting worn about 3 or 4 times because they decide to wear their home kit any opportunity. You've got to change kit for a reason. Wear it. That's one of those that pisses me off.
The Dundee United game gave me another one. It was the 90th minute. It was 90 minutes and 30 seconds, and there was 2 minutes added. And I can't remember. One of the teams was making a sub. Rangers were making a sub. I can't remember who they brought on. But the fucking first team coach gets the full tactics board out and is sitting there pointing about all the things he wants him to fucking do. And this is a minute and 30 seconds left. What possibly could you be telling him that is going to improve his level of performance?
I tell you right now,
it does my head in.
If I was to get Stevie on to give you his, I think his number one would maybe be subs with like my dad goes off his nut when subs get made with a minute to go. It does.
Your old man like get the subs on the hour, get them on in the hour, Mark.
Aye, absolutely.
That does my head in. And also, I was watching Dundee United were on Tony Watt with about 20 minutes to go, and he was taking ages to get fucking ready. Well, why aren't you ready to go on? I mean, your team's 2-0 down. You're a striker. Surely you want to get on and help them out. And he's sitting there, putting his top on, putting the Under Armour on, getting his tiny wee shitey shin pads on, and it was just doing my fucking head in. So there was lots of things in that game that really, really pissed me off. Pet peeves as well, when you sit on your phone during a podcast, that's also a big pet peeve of mine.
Listen, I'm a busy man. I'm a busy man. You know that, right? Come on, I'm organised. Well, I don't want to. It's confidentiality issues.
Confidentiality. Right. I'm going to go on the Instagram, Twitter. There's some. I want to get your thoughts on these. So actually, fucking listen to what our viewers are telling you. Right?
I'm listening.
Don't be so rude. Hetty Cormac, a referee who I would never criticise. His pet peeve was just quotations. He has every right to go down there. He obviously doesn't like that one as a referee. But my thing on that is sometimes players don't go down and they don't get decisions they would get if they did go down. So
yeah.
I mean,
why would you not go down?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you stay up and don't get a penalty, what's the point? And I've always said it. I'd really love to see referees give penalties for players who stay on their feet. When they're still fouled, I would love that, and it would change things. Ali McLeod asks, and you're going to love this one because as soon as he said it, I went, "Oh my god, that's so right." He says commentators calling Solly March by his full name constantly.
I actually seen this one in the comments.
I've never ever heard a commentator say March. It's always
March,
Solly March.
Aye, Solly March. Aye, Solly
every
March.
single time. That is wild. Craig Wilson says loading the box with big centre halves and then playing a short corner and going back to the goalie. That is, that's a
welcome to Celtic.
Yeah, that's there's a few one. Jacob McCarthy says zonal marking at corners, which I mean, a lot of teams do the hybrid now where they go some people man to man and some people go zonal. It's kind of weird. But yeah, I've never been a big fan. There was I need to go and find it. It was a crack of a tweet I missed. Aaron Smith says people asking who the referee is, as if the answer isn't going to be met with disappointment no matter who it is.
I love that. When Derby Day's rolling up, who's the referee?
It's Clancy. Oh, fucking Clancy. We're getting nothing. We're getting nothing.
Like, no, there's not a
Don Robertson, we're getting nothing this week.
There's not a chance there's a referee coming out the hat where you're going, that's quite good, aye.
There's not one. Says outswinging corners. He doesn't like outswinging corners.
Oh, I hate an outswinging corner.
I don't like it, but there must be a reason why everyone does it.
It's just not it's not aesthetically pleasing, is it?
You're right. It's not aesthetically pleasing. If I'm playing FIFA, I'd never take an outswinger. At Joppa Jing says the phrase "they have that in their locker." He says, "What the fuck is a locker got to do with football?" That's quite a good one. You hear that all the time.
I know what he's got in his locker.
Says just sitting beside Celtic Daz at the game. You sit beside Kieran Old, so there's a Celtic Daz.
True.
No, actually, he's the Celtic Daz. They hate him, the Celtic Daz, don't they?
Kieran should have been getting crucified in the Celtic way for his opinions on Neil Lennon, sure.
Oh yeah, I remember that. There's lots of stuff about people taking yards at throw-ins. I mean, that at the ground of the game, that does everyone's head in. Taking a few yards at the throw-ins. That's always a classic pet peeve. Ewan Starling says players that smile after dropping points. It's very Roy Keane, but yeah, I can imagine that being annoying.
At
Harris Allen says, when shirt numbers don't match the position they play, i.e. Cancelo number 7 at City.
That has always annoyed me, but I've kind of grown out of it a wee bit. I think I've just accepted a bit more, like, these things happen. It's the mod. Numbers don't mean much now, but I remember back in the day, right? If I ever had a FIFA career mode and I'd make all these signs, I made sure my goalkeeper was 1, my right back was 2, my fucking set. I always had positional number sort of thing.
Speaking of that, it's people who read out team lines from left to right. That does my fucking head in. When you listen to a team when they put the left back first, I don't like that. I don't like that. My right back, my centre half,
front to back.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Team lines that don't give any indication of the shape, that annoys me. Jonathan Harrison says English football pundits hyping England up after beating Farmers in a major tournament. Yeah, that's always. But I mean, it makes the inevitable outcome all the more sweet, doesn't it? Kieran B 2006 says when commentators start condemning a scrap on the pitch. I know Andy Walker's the fucking worst for this. Obviously we don't. This is not what we want to see. That's exactly what we want to see. I was watching AC Milan and Roma, and I was loving it. They were going for it.
Every commentator is lying through their teeth when they say they don't love to see it. They are sitting there clenching their fist from behind the microphones. You love it. That's what football's about. Andy Walker would have been involved in a fair few tussles in his time. So he's talking absolute shite if he's sitting there behind the microphone saying he hates to see it. He played for Celtic, for God's sake. Ewan Boyle, Morton fan, he says the applause after a team kicks the ball back when the game needs to stop for a team going down. He says, bring back the booing. And I'm completely on board with that. I would fucking... see when players are so obviously at it, fuck giving the ball back. It does my head in. We'll see when they're really obviously at it. No, I'm not having it. It really does my head in. Remember the best moment in recent footballing history in regards to that was the Aston Villa and Leeds game, remember?
Yes.
That was
Pontus Jansson made that because he wasn't having it at all. He was the only one that wasn't having it. Yeah, that was one of the best things I've ever seen. Stephen McKellen, he says... his will always be the phrase "a clash of heads." He says you don't get a clash of feet, so why? I mean, it should be a foul. He says if one wins the ball and the clash heads, it should be a foul. It's just an interesting point when you say it like that.
It's a key observation.
Yeah, I'd never really thought about that. Adam York just says Stephen O'Donnell. I thought we were past the Stephen O'Donnell slander. I've spent so much time defending Stephen O'Donnell. I'm not even going to get into it anymore. So that Slavin Corner says Ryan Womanating any opinions he has. That's his football pet peeve. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, Fair. It's been a while since you've had a really controversial take, though. It's almost as if when Celtic are winning, it's nothing,
I know, it's just, mate, I've said this to myself the other day. I was thinking, you know, I went a good 5 years on YouTube without, like, ever, and then it was just that 1 year. And maybe
everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
The last time I remember being clipped, you know, remember getting clipped? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And the last time I got clipped is when I called David Martindale a certain word, and that was so long ago.
What was that? Was that the terrorist shout, was it?
Yes, I called him a terrorist, which I don't take back.
People are too soft these days. You don't actually mean he's going to bomb somewhere. You know,
I'm sure David Martindale would laugh.
I probably like that part. You know? I mean, yeah. I'm moving to Instagram now because there's loads here as well. Colin Lowry says people leaving early. That's more of a self-defense.
Don't get me.
Subway loyals, and you've got your. Well, what do you call them? Because it's not even the Tesco Parkhead loyals anymore. You can't rush for their brews anymore.
Kilmarnock Station or something.
Yeah. I mean, each to their own, isn't it? Liam Buckley says the Messi Ronaldo debate. You're allowed to like both of them. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Comes back to what we're saying about Twitter, doesn't it? Can
we come back to that one just very quickly?
Okay,
it fucking pisses me off. If you like Messi, you like Ronaldo, cool. Let it be. I hate this constant bickering on Twitter. Like, they're both incredible players. Messi's obviously better. Just leave it at that. Like, that's it. Just fucking. It's either one or the other.
The World Cup final was that it should have ended it, but it hasn't really worked. But that's football Twitter, isn't it? In its nutshell. You know, down the pub, you're not really having a full-on fucking discussion about that. It just doesn't happen. Lewis Hart says, when a corner doesn't beat the first man, always done my head in. Always done my absolute head. I've said that. I'd clear the first man. How the fuck can he not do it? James Milner, at least all the time, verbal did my head in. Lots of stuff about VAR, but I mean, that's kind of. I was looking for more obscure. Ryan Harley says, although it's mainly gone now away goals, controversially, I like away goals. I was a big fan of it. Provided us with some fantastic moments in European football.
One I'll throw in very quickly that's always been a pet peeve of mine, when the tunnel and the dugouts is on the other, like, see the cameras look at it should be behind the camera. You should
when that year at Hampden when they moved it around.
Yes, exactly that.
I agree with that. That annoys me. There was one, I need to find out who said it because I need to give them credit. It was Martin Renfrew said the Hearts halfway line not lining up with a tunnel. Have you seen that? It's like very slightly off.
Yeah, that's annoying.
One who said that. Glasgow Source had to jump in just so we give him a shout out. People who think Ronaldo is anywhere near Messi, typical. I mean, Zach just can't leave it alone, can he?
Exactly.
David McIntyre, good old friend of ours, David McIntyre.
Oh, David boy.
Peter Walton and Darwin Gallagher, pointless.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. What a shout, by the way. I hate that. Do you see people sharing that clip about the handball with Peter Walton in it as if, like, even he's saying it. Like, what? Peter Walton talks absolute drivel. He should be in a home.
He was actually disagreeing with the pundits, was there not? And he came across quite well. I can't remember which one it was.
It was Gary Neville. It was Gary Neville during the World Cup, and I thought it was very evident.
It was so clearly. Was it a red card or a penalty? I can't remember.
I can't remember. But what I remember picking up from it was evident that Neville has never. Obviously, Neville works for Sky and Walton works for BT. It was very evident that they've never worked before because Neville was just not having it. He was not having it at all.
Both not having it.
They were just off faces.
I remember McCoy's commentary was like everyone thought it was a penalty, or it was a penalty or a red card. But anyway, it was just those two that were raging. Right, let's get through the last couple. M McGrain 919 says players getting booked for taking the top off during a celebration. I mean, I don't really know why. I guess it's nudity. Yeah, but is it not more so like in case they've got a top with a message underneath it? Is that maybe that's more of the reason? Like I don't know.
While you're sitting reading there, I'm going to actually Google the reason. Now I know.
I'm just going to come back. I've got one more really, and it's something you said earlier. Lewis T51, having 3 kits and still getting a kit clash, like the St Mirren Celtic game earlier on in the season. Yeah. Why couldn't St Mirren should have probably won their away kit that day. But yeah.
Right. So I've typed into Google, why do players get booked for taking their top off? And the top result on Google says, if a player incites the crowd and or takes their shirt off, puts the ball under their shirt to indicate a pregnancy after scoring a goal, they are likely to get booked by the referee. This can cause huge controversy if the players already... So it's literally not... There's the 6 reasons. I don't even care.
Right, we've got 2 more I want to do. One is from Bethany Diamond, who says, Callum watching football and patching me for hours. That's her pet peeve. So we'll get Callum.
I'm sure...
Callum will be on to defend himself on Thursday.
I'm sure.
And the final one is from my dad, who says, bigotry from the old firm. Now, Dad, we're not getting into that because I simply don't have the time nor the patience, nor do I want tweets aimed at me, giving me death threats for the next week, because that probably what will happen if you do a podcast on that. That's above our pay grade, quite frankly, isn't it, man?
Yeah, it is indeed.
We'll just leave it there. Right, let's wrap it up because it's been an hour. It's been a quick hour.
It's been an hour,
tonight. Right, what's happening next? So we've got on Wednesday, before the Rangers game on Wednesday night, there's going to be a show coming out. Dev's back. Dev's returned to the channel, and Jack is back also. We're going to do a special just on Rangers and Michael Beale, on his appointment, things that need improved, I'll put a tweet out for all the Rangers fans to get the questions in for that. Then on Thursday, myself, Callum, and Adam will look ahead to the weekend where we've got the League Cup semi-finals and a whole host of other games. So there's plenty to be looking forward to. We're back. We're actually consistently uploading. And yeah, we're happy to be back. I mean, that's certainly, it's giving me something to do. Big smiles on the faces. And that's us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.